Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Heir's Lair. I'm your host, Jonathan Taylor. This video is going to be somewhat atypical compared to my usual ones. As you've noticed, I'm wearing my most casual attire, and I don't really have a script memorized for today, so it's going to be very casual. So if I stutter a bit, repeat my words, or introduce a little bit more unnecessary uhs and stuff like that, you'll know why. This video is going to go up on my 30th birthday, and I thought I would use the opportunity to start off a new series I've had in mind for this channel, where I talk freely about some of the books that have impacted me throughout my YouTube career and maybe even and for a long time before that. Part of the premise for this series will be that I will not be rereading these books before I talk about them, because I want to see just how they make themselves, just how memorable they actually are. And the book I've decided to start out this discussion series with is the book I will actually call my favorite of all time, and it's called La Medeleni by Ionel Teodoreanu. And I also this discussion series is going to be full spoilers. So normally I would advise you to go out and read this book, but given I don't think it is available anywhere in any language other than my native Romanian, I'll just go full spoilers with my discussions of the book. In translation, the title would be at Medeleni, and Medeleni is some big state/mansion where the three main characters not necessarily live, but spend some or most of their childhood at. These three characters are all kids of the Delano family, which is a pretty wealthy family of, I'll say the equivalent of landed gentry or law professionals, or more precisely, their dad is a lawyer, their mother is, I think, a housewife, which, part of the aesthetics of the time. And these and their children are, on one hand, Daniel, who is mostly a calm and collected child up until something sets him off, and his sister Olguța. Olguța is the diminutive form of Olga. Olguța is described as an angelic devil, someone who is capable of both purity and deviousness. And by deviousness, don't expect anything too crazy. It's mainly just sass, and it is absolutely glorious, glorious sass. There is a point in the second volume of this novel, because yes, this novel is split across volumes, where she mentions that the only reason various law students attend her dad's practice in order to gain hands-on experience is because they want to get a little quick glimpse at Olguța's stepsister and the third child of this family, Monica. Monica is actually she's not a stepsister in the traditional sense. I think the best way to describe her would be as a ward of the Delano family. Daniel gets instantly smitten with her because reasons, and the three volumes of this book, which coincidentally all have their own titles. Let me just read them out for you as soon as I open them up. They can be translated as The Fickle Border, Roads, and Between the Winds. Yeah, let me just say the titles are pretty apt. Fickle Borders, childhood. You're learning stuff within a specific border, and then those borders get increasingly bigger. Uh, Roads, second volume, takes place when all of them are teenagers, and they're trying to figure out which ways they're going to grow, because you can't go full borders. And then Between the Winds, all characters are adults, and now they have to um, and now they have to understand where to go from that point forward, where the general society will carry them. You are more willing to allow yourself to be carried when you're a teenager. That's why it's called. I think that's why it's called Roads. But then when you're an adult and uh, you have more of a will of your own, so to speak, it becomes more difficult or troubling to accept. Monica, for the most part, at least in the first volume, plays more the role of peacemaker between the two biological siblings. But in later parts, and her role in the book mm, is more of a basically eye candy. Well, she's nice, and she makes herself known uh, uh, as a gentle and welcoming figure, but otherwise she doesn't really. I don't think she really receives a lot of dimension throughout the book. So that is one thing that is one thing that the books themselves kind of struggle with. Daniel receives plenty of that, and you get to see him in plenty of different points throughout his life and how he changes. And Olgutza doesn't change at all, but really she doesn't have to be. She is already the perfect character. Like I swear, she is very entertaining to follow. She has pretty much all of the best lines in this entire book. She has a lot of charm to her, a lot of wit, and and just uh, and just following the parts of the book that describe her antics are endlessly entertaining. Though I can't really remember all of her antics right now. And there is one thing I will mention, but I'll get to that soon enough. The basic plot of these books revolves around. Uh, oh well, of course, it revolves around these characters as they grow up. I'll say around the teens and 20s of last century. And this book, uh, part of the time span of this book also covers Romania's involvement in the First World War, but that that is not a part of the action almost at all, which I don't know what to make of that. Kind of sounds like a missed opportunity right now, but at the same time, I'm not sure what kind of opportunities the the story and its setting could really realistically utilize. So for that, I'm just gonna say, yeah, it's fine as it is. Um, and what happens? And some of you might ask, well, what happens throughout throughout these years? Well, there are 15 of them during which this book takes place. And the first one is basically just set up. We get to know the siblings, including the ward. We get to know how they interact. We get to know in what environment they grew up in, which also happens to include all of the people who live on or around the Medeleni state. So yeah, those are the uh, proletarians, as it were. Because yes, this is very much a this is very much a book about the bourgeoisie. And looking back on it with that in mind is doesn't really change anything about it. It makes though I'll argue it makes a little bit more. I'll argue it makes the book be a little bit more interesting because it gives you characters who actually have the capabilities to legit do stuff in the way the world is set up. And also, this book isn't really about that. It's about the charm of childhood, of a childhood that belongs to the most rich. But hey, that's history for you. The rich assholes always get most of the attention, most of the positive attention as well. A lot, somewhat more than they deserve. Let's keep it at that. And but again, you don't really think about that while you're reading it. Some critics have called it overly melodramatic and overly baroque, but I didn't think of it that way. At least not while I was reading it. In fact, if anything, while I will argue it was indeed melodramatic and really baroque in the sense of in the sense of 16th to 18th century, the artistic current. I will argue it manages to make all of those feelings, all of that melodrama, and all of those uh, declarations seem seem like they make sense. Seem like they are the most natural thing ever. Because this book gets into the perspectives of each of its characters so well, and you understand uh, how every one of them thinks, and how every one of them interacts, and not just the spotlight characters, but even some of their associates, maybe even enemies, and and even the proletarians that do get that do get mentioned uh, do actually have personality, uh, do actually represent more than more than just, oh, these are the people under no these are the people under our control, or under our or who we are supposed to be responsible for. These are really fully realized people. Of the little we do see about them, we can see we can see that much. Um, by the end of the first volume of this book, trying to figure out how to keep my head straight. Okay, by the end of the first volume of this book, uh, the the uncle of the kids comes around the estate and offers Daniel an opportunity to go to him and have a schooling in Bucharest, which is Romania's capital. That of course means that he would have to leave Medeleni, but ultimately he decides to do just that well because it is somewhat, to some extent, what is expected of him. The second volume takes place during the summer break right before his senior year. We find out that he has some lovers, mainly female lovers. So sorry if everyone expected any uh, any gay rep in this story, even though um, because you're not it's not happening. And also, and there's one character in particular, uh, as per his okay, I really need to think of how I say this. There is one character in particular who catches his admiration, but who also catches the admiration uh, of another man, and there is a low key competitive streak between that other man and Daniel. At one point at one point I think they try to get into each other's good graces, and that results in him lending out a lot of his books to Daniel in order to read. And no matter how thick the books are, no matter how many volumes they're split up in, Daniel manages to finish all of them within a weekend. And that's I don't mean his entire library or whatever, but like think about an individual book made up of various volumes. Doesn't matter how thick the book is or how many volumes it has. If that guy gives it to Daniel, he's able to finish it within a weekend, and apparently also proves that he is able to read it well enough. Then I think there's another guy who says that Daniel is one of the biggest idiots in what is traditionally described as Romania, and that his stepsister Monica is the greatest beauty within Romania. And truth be told, there are lots of jokes that are made about how beautiful Monica is. You remember those jokes about how badass Chuck Norris was? Chuck Norris facts. Well, you could also write Monica facts about how about how beautiful she is. And in fact, there are plenty of examples of that throughout the book, presented in more low-key ways. So yeah. Also, Monica, throughout most of the books, as I said, retains her charming, demure self. Doesn't really develop too far beyond that, even though 15 years pass for her as well as for everyone else, which is I have to say the biggest problem with the book in general, that she doesn't really have a significant development. As for Olgutsa, I already said she doesn't really need much development, and actually throughout the second book, we see that she actually takes a lot of enjoyment in in being kind of her chaotic self. She plays tennis. She writes long essays about whatever the fuck she wants. She she attends a lot of places, talks to a whole bunch of people, and at one point goes to Bucharest to her uncle wearing only her tennis outfit. Like, that's I found that very funny when it when I read it. Her entire character is built up in such a way that it is actually very charming. The third book, I have to say, is perhaps the weak link between the three of these, because it doesn't really have a lot of the same charm when it comes to the various characters that go in and out of the story. But I will still talk about it. It takes place about 14 to 15 years after the first one. Daniel is now a graduated lawyer, and he and that, funnily enough, happens to be discussed somewhat. Given that the author Ionel Teodoreanu is a lawyer himself, it only makes sense. There is a discussion about a case. I won't say what that case was about, because it's a pretty sensitive topic that the book itself doesn't really treat well. So yeah, product of its day, and and he has a differing opinion from Daniel. Has a differing opinion from from his father and his father's colleagues, and there is a little bit of pressure between them for him to really change his opinion, change his verdict, or his valuation of the case, as it were. But otherwise, one thing the third book did, which was somewhat regrettable, is that it gives or Gutsa cancer. Well, okay, she gets cancer throughout the within the third book, and she uh, and this realization really makes her stop being that little daredevil that she's been throughout the story. She she actually starts a more committed relationship with an older man called Vanya, who, if I'm not mistaken, is actually her uncle by either blood or marriage. I hope marriage. And apparently she wants to uh, run away with him to America and get married there and etc. Thing is, she does, but however she doesn't do it. Pressure of thinking, pressures of thinking outside of her realm, outside of her typical realm of activities and looking towards the future. Uh, Gets to her and she kills herself. The epilogue of this series sees the family selling the house because that's part of how they deal with their grief. Also, by the way, Danielle and Monica get married, and it's hinted that they have a happy life, but the book doesn't really explore that. It's more a book about it's definitely a book about childhood and youth, and the trials and tribulations that come with that. And I think that is something that Jornal Teodoranu managed to lock down very well. That as a child or as a teen, you have emotional complexity, but you don't know how to deal with it yet. Everything you encounter is the biggest thing you've ever encountered, and you don't know how to and you don't know how to process that, and uh, you struggle trying to find out. That is something I think made him popular, not just not just within his time, but also past his time. It's what made me it's what endeared me to him and to his work, because like I said, this book does everything. Like I said before, this book does everything I usually hated in the books I was assigned to read in school, but it does them in a way that even I found very charming. And the secret to, and I'll say the secret to that, is that he understands that aspect of youth, that aspect of every new thing being the greatest challenge you've encountered, and that you have to deal with it on your own in your own ways. Uh, and also the fact that he is so good at writing a whole bunch of other characters who have a lot of charisma, a lot of grit, a lot of charm, and are good humored. It overall makes for a very entertaining read, and it is for that reason, among many others, that I referred to these to these 3 volumes as my favorite book of all time. Yeah, I'm not gonna give it a rating or anything. This is free discussion, so no more ratings. I might do free discussions on books I've already rated, but that's a different question for a different time. And that was all I had to say about this book. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, well, then please leave a like and maybe even share this video wherever you think others will like it as well. If you have anything you'd like to add to what it is I said, the comment section awaits your input. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. My own book, my own debut novel, Heir to the Empire: The Next Generation is available at most major book retailers under a master link in the description below, right past my social media. If any of them sound interesting to you, maybe also give those a look. Until next time, I am Jonathan Taylor, and this has been the Heir's Lair.